Today, we are diving deep into one of the biggest, most talked about topics in Hollywood, Ozempic. You've heard the name, you've seen the headlines. Is it this incredible medical miracle or a really dangerous new trend? We're gonna look at what the stars themselves are saying, and by the end, you can make up your own mind.
Okay, so right out of the gate, we need to get one thing straight, and that's the medical side of things. Dr. Caroline Apovian puts it pretty bluntly. These drugs weren't made for someone who just wants to lose, 10 pounds for a movie role. They were developed for people facing life-threatening obesity. This quote, it's everything. It really frames the entire debate we're about to get into.
So what are these things, really? Well, they're part of a class of drugs called GLP-1 medications. Now, what that means in plain English is that they basically copy a hormone your body already makes. This hormone's job is to send a signal to your brain that says, hey, you're full. It also helps keep your blood sugar in check. And that powerful effect on making you feel full, well, that's exactly why they've blown up. All right, let's hear from the people who are all for it. For a lot of celebrities, people who live their entire lives under a microscope, these medications have been a total game changer. They're not just calling it helpful, some are calling it a revolution. And of course, we have to start with Oprah. When she talks, the world really does listen. And what she says here hits home for so many people. This idea that your weight is all about willpower, she talks about that constant pressure to just prove she was strong enough. And now, she's saying she's done with that. She doesn't feel that way anymore. And this is where she completely flips the script on the whole conversation. Just listen to the words she uses: relief, redemption, a gift. Wow, those are seriously powerful terms. For her, it's not a cheat code, it's not admitting failure, it's a medical tool. A tool that's finally freed her from what sounds like a lifetime of blaming herself. And she didn't just leave it at that. On her big TV special, she really went all in, trying to just tear down the shame that's built up around these drugs. By putting her own journey out there, she's trying to make it about something much bigger than just losing weight. She's framing it as being about hope, a genuine medical breakthrough for people who've struggled for decades. But look, it's not just Oprah. A lot of other stars are sharing their stories too, and for really different reasons. You have Vanessa Williams, who used it to deal with what she called the insane body changes from menopause. Then there's Serena Williams, a top-tier athlete who used it to get past a training plateau. And Lauren Manzo says it literally saved my life because it quieted all that food noise in her brain. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. But it's only one side, because for every person praising these drugs, there's someone else sounding the alarm, saying this whole trend is a really, really bad idea. Case in point, Kate Winslet. Her reaction wasn't thought out or political, it was just visceral. When someone tried to explain the drug to her, that was her immediate gut reaction. Just a total rejection of the whole idea, like it's the most unnatural thing in the world. And she didn't back down from that either. Later, she doubled down with even stronger words, calling the trend devastating and frightening. You can tell, for her, this goes way beyond just a medication. She sees it as a sign of a culture that's encouraging people to disregard their own health. Her take, it's total chaos. And the reasons people are wary are all over the map. For a singer like Jelly Roll, it's a practical, professional concern. He was worried about acid reflux, which is a known side effect, and what that could do to his voice. For Lizzo, it seems to be more of a personal philosophy, choosing mind over matter. And then you have Jenna Bush Hager just keeping it real, joking that she's not using it because, hey, food is just too good. It really shows this is not a one-size-fits-all thing. So we have the people who love it and the people who hate it. But what happens when you zoom out? This is where it gets really interesting, because the conversation stops being about just personal choice and turns into something much bigger, about society, about pressure, about how we're supposed to look. And Ashley Tisdale just nails how fast this whole thing has changed. She points out that it went from this whispered hush-hush secret to, well, now it feels like it's everywhere. That question she asks, is everyone on Ozempic but me? I think a lot of people out there are probably wondering the exact same thing. And this right here really shows what she's getting at. Think about it. We had the 2000s, then we spent a whole decade pushing for body positivity. And now, it feels like we're snapping right back to this ideal of extreme thinness. It's exhausting, right? It feels like the goalposts just never, ever stop moving.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that even someone who says this drug saved her life, Lauren Manzo, is drawing a hard line. She's basically saying there's a huge difference between using it for real health issues, like her high blood pressure, and abusing it. She sees people getting so thin you can see their ribs, and she says that just makes it harder for people who actually need the medication for their health.
So this is really what it all boils down to. Just look at the words on the screen. The two sides aren't just disagreeing, they're speaking completely different languages. One side is talking about a gift, about hope and redemption. The other is using words like devastating, frightening, total chaos. There's absolutely zero middle ground here. So, we've heard from the fans, we've heard from the critics. Where does all that leave us? Well, after all is said and done, the entire massive debate really comes down to one single powerful question. And this is it. Is this whole thing a true medical miracle, a source of real hope for people who have been struggling their entire lives? Or is it just the newest, most powerful tool to pressure everyone into looking one specific super thin way? That right there is the million-dollar question. Honestly, the verdict is far from decided, and that's where you come in. We really want to know what you think. After hearing all this, where do you land? Medical miracle or dangerous trend? Drop your take in the comments below. Seriously, we want to hear it. And hey, if you like breaking down these huge, complicated topics, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and ring the little bell so you don't miss our next explainer. Okay, let's be real. From Hollywood gossip to your own social media feed, it seems like everyone is talking about Ozempic. But what's the real story here? Well, today we're going to cut through all that noise and get to the truth about the GLP-1 boom. I know it's the question on a lot of people's minds. Are these things some kind of miracle drug? Are they even safe? Let's get some straight answers, and we're going to start with the absolute basics. You definitely know these names, right? Wegovy, Ozempic, Zepbound. Now, they might have different brand names, and sometimes they're used for different things, but they all belong to this one really powerful family of drugs. So let's dive into what actually makes them tick. All right, first up, the big one. How do they actually work? The science behind this is pretty fascinating. And don't worry, we're going to break it all down so it's super easy to get. So check this out, because this is probably the most surprising part. GLP-1 isn't some weird chemical cooked up in a lab. Nope, it's a hormone your own body makes naturally. When you eat food, your gut releases it to help manage blood sugar, and this is the key part, to send a little signal up to your brain that says, hey, we're full down here. What these new medications do is they basically turn the volume way up on that natural signal. They work on your brain and in your gut to dial down your appetite and slow down digestion, which makes you feel fuller for way longer. But honestly, the biggest thing people talk about is how it silences the food noise. You know that constant chatter in your head about what you're going to eat next? For a lot of people, that just goes quiet. And that really highlights a crucial difference, you know? Hunger is physical. Your stomach is growling, your body literally needs fuel. But appetite, that's all mental. That's your brain going, that donut looks good, even if you're not actually hungry. These drugs are such a game changer because they mainly go after that psychological appetite. So all of this leads to a really, really important question. Who are these drugs actually for? Because the answer is way more specific than all the celebrity hype would have you believe. We're talking about a serious medical tool here, not a toy for a quick cosmetic fix. Medically speaking, it all starts with this number, 30. And that's referring to your body mass index, or BMI. It's one of the main thresholds doctors look at before even thinking about prescribing these drugs for obesity. So to get a little more specific, doctors are looking for a BMI of 30 or higher, or a BMI of 27 if you also have another weight-related health problem like high blood pressure. And here's the kicker. These are really meant for people who have already tried diet and exercise first. It's not supposed to be the first thing you try. And that's exactly why you hear experts getting worried about people using them off-label. As one dietitian from the Mayo Clinic, Tara Schmidt, put it, using these drugs just to lose 10 or 15 pounds before a vacation, she says it's inappropriate because that's not what these drugs are designed for. Which brings us to, the reality check, the reality behind all the hype. Because as incredible as these drugs can be, they are absolutely not a magic bullet. There are some really important things we need to unpack here. Okay, here's the thing that gets lost in all the chatter. This is not a cure, it's a treatment. Think of it like blood pressure medication. It only works for as long as you're taking it. If you stop the medication, for most people, the weight just comes right back.
It's a long-term commitment. And yeah, like any truly effective medicine, there are side effects. Because these drugs are literally slowing down your whole digestive system, tummy troubles are pretty common. We're talking nausea, vomiting, constipation, diarrhea, especially when you're just starting out or whenever your dose goes up. All right, we have to talk about the term that has gone completely viral, Ozempic face. You've seen the headlines, I'm sure, but is it actually a real side effect of the drug itself? Let's clear the air on this one. The simple answer is no. Ozempic face isn't caused by the medication. It's what happens when anyone on any diet loses a lot of weight really fast. When you lose fat from your face, your skin can look a little saggy or hollowed out. It can happen with any kind of rapid weight loss, not just from these drugs. So, with all of that laid out, where is this whole thing heading? Let's look to the future, because trust me, what we're seeing right now is just the tip of the iceberg. And this leads us to what might be the biggest question of all. With a tool this powerful, are we finally on the verge of solving the obesity epidemic once and for all? Well, experts are quick to pump the brakes a little bit. They're skeptical that the drugs alone are the entire answer, and for a few really good reasons. First, we live in what they call an obesogenic environment. We're just surrounded by cheap, easy, super processed food. Second, the cost is a massive barrier. We're talking over $1,000 a month, which means sadly a lot of people who could really benefit just can't get access to them. But, and this is a big but, the science is not standing still. It's moving at lightning speed. Right now, we have injections. The near future, pills. After that, even more powerful versions are already in the works. And maybe the most exciting part of all is that we're finding out these drugs could have huge benefits way beyond weight loss for things like heart disease, kidney disease, you name it. This story is really just getting started. And so that leaves us with one final, huge question to chew on. As this medical revolution keeps unfolding, are these powerful new tools going to solve one of our biggest health crises? Or could their widespread use end up creating a whole new set of challenges that we can't even predict yet? So, what do you think? Are these drugs the future of medicine, or are we headed for some big, unforeseen problems? Let us know your take down in the comments. We genuinely want to hear what you think. And hey, if you want more explainers that go deep on the topics that are shaping our world, make sure you click subscribe and ring that little notification bell so you don't miss a thing. We're going to dig into the story behind those weight loss injections that are, well, pretty much everywhere you look these days. I mean, a shot to lose weight? It sounds like an absolute miracle, right? It's all over social media. But what's the real price you pay? Beyond those perfect before and after pictures, there is a way more complicated story. So let's get into it. Okay, so to really get a handle on the risks, we first have to understand the science. It's all about how these injections basically trick your brain into thinking you're full. It all boils down to this one thing, GLP-1. You can think of it as the I'm full hormone. It's something our bodies actually make naturally, down in our gut. Its entire job is to shoot a message up to your brain that says, hey, we're good down here. You can stop eating. So it's simple. More GLP-1 means less hunger. Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. What you eat can totally change how much of this I'm full signal your body sends out. Get this, studies show that if you eat a low-carb meal, your body pumps out 3 times more GLP-1 than if you ate the same amount of calories in a high-carb meal. That's a huge difference in how full you feel just from changing what's on your plate. And this right here is the heart of the problem. When a lean person eats carbs, they get this big, healthy flood of GLP-1. The brain gets the signal loud and clear, but for an obese person, that exact same meal produces basically nothing, a negligible response. So their brain never gets that I'm full message, and they just keep feeling hungry. And that, right there, is why a drug that jacks up your GLP-1 can feel like such a game changer. But, and this is a big but, this is where the story takes a turn. Because for every success story you see online, there's a hidden cost, a pretty serious one actually, that the influencers aren't really talking about. Okay, listen to this, because this is probably the most important thing that gets swept under the rug. Studies are showing that up to a shocking
40% of the weight people lose on these drugs isn't fat. It's what's called lean mass. We're talking about your muscle and your bones. Let that sink in. For every 10 pounds you drop on the scale, 4 of those pounds could be the essential tissue you need to be strong and healthy. And look, this isn't just some number in a study. This is a real person, a singer named Avery. And that's her, in her own words, talking about the diagnosis she got after just 1 year on this stuff: osteoporosis. That's a life-changing, real-world consequence. And the problem gets even worse because, let's be real, most people don't stay on these drugs forever. I mean, data from the UK shows that almost 70% of people stop using them within 2 years. Why? Well, they're expensive, the side effects can be rough, and, life happens. And here is the really dangerous trap. The moment you stop the injections, the fat can pile back on fast, but that muscle and bone density you lost, it doesn't come back so easily. In fact, for older users, it might be gone for good. You can actually end up in a worse place metabolically speaking than you were before you even started. So, we've talked about the physical side, the muscle and bone loss, but the effects don't stop there. The same thing that shuts down your appetite can have some really surprising and, frankly, alarming effects on your brain. Yeah, the research that's coming out now is pretty sobering. The data points to the risk of suicidal thoughts doubling, the risk of major depression tripling. And what seems to be happening is that the drug doesn't just turn down the volume on your food cravings. For some people, it turns down the volume on, well, everything. Their interest in exercise, in their hobbies, even in seeing their friends. It's like it just drains the color out of life, leaving this profound sense of apathy. And that brings us back to Avery. This quote it's just heartbreaking. You can just feel the pressure she was under. She gets addicted, and the result is osteoporosis, her bones becoming as fragile as wafer cookies. It just perfectly captures that devastating cycle of outside pressure, addiction, and serious physical damage. Okay, so after hearing all of this, you're probably thinking, is there any responsible way to use these drugs? Well, the source material we're breaking down suggests that maybe we need to think about them in a totally different way. First, we gotta get one thing straight. There's a huge difference in how you lose fat. Healthy weight loss, through diet and exercise, is like letting the air out of a balloon. The fat cells shrink, and that's amazing for your metabolism. Liposuction, on the other hand, is like popping the balloons. You're just removing the cells. It does nothing to improve your metabolic health. The goal isn't just to get rid of stuff, it's to make the stuff you have healthier. So this brings us to a potential framework for using these drugs responsibly. And the key word here is tool. The drug isn't the solution, it's a temporary bridge. The idea is you use the absolute lowest dose that works, just enough to break that powerful addiction to sugar and carbs. But at the same time, you're building the real long-term habits. You're learning about nutrition, you're lifting weights to protect that precious muscle and bone, and you're building the mental discipline to do it on your own. Then, as those habits get stronger, you slowly taper off the drug, with the goal of eventually not needing it at all. And that really leaves us with one final big question. We're just bombarded day in and day out with the amazing benefits of these injections. But what if the risks? We're talking osteoporosis, depression, losing muscle you might never get back. What if those risks got the same primetime coverage? Would people still make the same choice? It's something to think about for sure. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this one in the comments below.